everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Belinda Pina with Footwear Plus magazine, and I'm pleased to have Liza Amlani joining us again today. She's the principal of the Retail Strategy Group as well as the Merchant Life. So thank you again, Liza, for being with us.
Thanks, Belinda. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about assortment planning, which I really like this subject matter because I think for any retailer, it's obviously very critical to their success. Whether it's for a quarter or for the year, we know that this really underpins profits, which is, really the number one conversation that, I feel like we want to help support at the end of the day. And I think the assortment planning is really a reflection of ensuring that you're meeting customer demand, consumer demand. So I would love to just start with the basics, Liza, and have you just define what a brand assortment is.
Sure. So depending on if you are a brand or a multi-brand retailer, the assortment is your product mix that you are going to sell on any channel. So whether it is physical, digital, or social, that's basically it. That is, what is in the store is your assortment.
Is it safe to say it's literally like what your ideal product mix is for a store?
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. Definitely. Okay. It is the product mix.
Wonderful. So let's get into how you actually begin to build an assortment. What does that look like?
So with many brands and retailers, building an assortment is part of your entire go-to-market or business process or product creation process. So it's an element of that. And the assortment planning is happening with planners and merchandising teams as product is being designed and developed. The assortment framework is something that is a way of quantifying the buckets of your assortment. So whether it is seasonless or core basic product, and then an element of fashion, and then possibly an element of innovative products that, could be new, could be high tech, could be something that you've developed from a material standpoint. So it really is the framework of the assortment that drives what is in the product mix.
Now, does this look pretty similar from an independent retailer's point of view versus a major big box retailer? And what
I would say yes. I would say yes, because I've worked with small to medium to large global brands, from design-led brands also to multi-brand retailers. And we are building assortments in the same way. So we are developing a framework, whether we're creating the product or buying into third-party brands. The way that we're putting the assortment together is usually a year in advance. That's something that, I'm sure we can touch on is around timing and speed to market. But for the most part, no matter the size of your brand or the size of your retail store or digital channel, you are putting together an assortment mix that reflects what your customer is looking for: right product, right time, right place.
Got it. So I hear you mentioning framework a lot. Can you give us a bit of what this framework should look like?
Yeah. Ideally, I would say that a framework should consist of your basic and core styles. In many cases, you'll see that making up maybe 60% of your line, or a little bit more, depending on what categories you're buying into. What I'm seeing a lot of market leading brands do now is focus on seasonless assortment. So they're not recreating the portion of the assortment plan or framework that is dedicated to basic and core products. So it's something that can live on despite the season. And you'll see that with, things like basic pumps. You'll see that with booties, or even, just your basic black boot, or your sneaker. Basic white sneaker or a black sneaker that is going to sell despite the season. So that's what I would define as seasonless. When we think of that framework, it really does depend on what your community and your consumer is looking for. So driving a lot of those decisions around either product creation or assortment planning through the lens of the consumer, really, and the community that you're serving.
I can see how, this is really such a critical process in that if you don't get it right, you have unhappy consumers,
Yes,
right?
it's
And
the
that
last
could
thing we
be
want.
right. That could be because you're out of stock on a product that's hot and selling off the shelves. So a lack of inventory. And then, of course, having products sit, which then has to become marked down. So
Yes.
what are like some of the strategic tactics that, one might look at when they're also deciding how this whole framework looks and product mix?
I mean, what we want to focus on is pretty much the same thing across any size retailer, is that you want to increase profitability, you want to reduce your markdown activity, and you want to increase your gross margin. And the way that you do that is you buy into the right quantities and the right product, which is easy to say but difficult to do, because you want to make sure that you're marrying art and science when you are predicting what the consumer is looking for. So leveraging things like predictive analytics, consumer insight, consumer feedback when driving product decisions or assortment planning decisions will give you a little bit more, let's say, guarantees across your product mix, because you want to buy into product that is going to sell through at full price. And it's not something new at all. It's something that we all want, of course. But what you want to do is you want to simplify that process. So that would mean reducing some SKUs, really focusing on product that has a purpose, and reducing some of that, the depth, so that you're selling through, but you still have that possibility to buy into again if it reacts well with the consumer.
Got it. And I know that, as a tie-in to assortment planning, there's the other conversation, which I think is a very sometimes challenging area for retailers when we talk about
Yeah.
inventory management as a whole.
Yes.
So
Yes,
can you talk a little
absolutely.
bit about how the proper assortment planning really helps to benefit the inventory management?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with managing your inventory, I think having the right tools in place are critical, not only for forecasting and planning purposes, but also with managing your inventory in real time. So knowing where your product is from your sourcing and factory partners all the way to stores. What we're seeing a lot of today is that there's a lot of allocation in season, and that movement of product is really taking your product off the shop floor and reducing full price selling time. So what you want to do is make sure you invest in the right tools to help you predict which stores should have which inventory. The way that you do that is not only by leveraging digital tools and predictive analytics and all of the great tools that are available, but also talking to your customers. I think that's something that we're starting to lose sight of a little bit. And I'd love to see more of that. I think once you incorporate things like consumer insights, closing that feedback loop, you'll get a better sense of what the consumer is looking for, and then you're able to serve them with the right product. In terms of managing that inventory, I think that there's a lot of activity right now in terms of reforecasting, just looking at the assortment in general, but also there's a lot of markdown and promotional activity right now, especially when we see what the bigger players are doing. We want to compete with them. That's not necessarily the right move, because what a lot of markdown activity could do is it could devalue your brand, which is the last thing that you want to do. You want to remain competitive. So I would say, just really think about the product that you're marking down. And if you have the opportunity, the space, the resources to pack and hold product, if it's seasonless or core for the next year, then I would say definitely do that. That's not a new strategy at all, but it is an option. Working with your vendors to maybe hold your next delivery, so that you have that time to sell through the product that you already have. There's a lot of strategies that retailers and brands can put in place today to make better decisions across inventory. And a lot of that has to do with really truly understanding that every product has a purpose. Evaluate your SKUs every single season. I call that a SKU rationalization exercise, which I'm sure a lot of us do, but we don't do very often. So I would say this is something that we'd want to do on a seasonal basis, just to make sure that we're buying into the right product at the right time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for these invaluable tips and insights, Liza. We
My
will look forward
pleasure.
to having you with us again soon.